right, today what we're going to do is we're going to do a brief little bit of review about what we've learned so far, and I'm going to fill in a couple gaps, add a couple little things to the stuff we already know, and then we're going to talk about a new topic. So let's just briefly remind ourselves what this stands for. Shout it out. Create, read, update, delete. Very good. Oh, that's hard to not do. All right. So, and those are the four things you can do in a database. You can create stuff, read stuff, update stuff, delete stuff, or retrieve stuff if you want for the R. So there's two different places we do this. In general, we talk about the structure of a database and the data itself, or the records, right? There's also other things that we haven't gotten into, like views and users and constraints and all these other things that you can create and read and update and delete. But the main ones we've talked about are structure and records, right? So what's the command when dealing with structures if I want to create something? Create, right? Create table, create database, whatever, right? What if I want to create a column? That's for the records, inserts for records. You're barking up the right tree. Not quite. I'll give you a hint. Starts with an A, it ends with two D's. My hints are not very good, are they? Add, right? So you're right, though we do alter the table first, and then we add the column. So when would you add a column? If this is a scenario where you already created the table and you want to add a column later, right? If you're just building the table, it just goes in your create statement. But if you built it and then later realize you want to add another one, then that's where you use this. All right. So how do we read tables? And show, if I want to see a list of the tables, right, show. If I want to see, if I want to see the details of a table, describe. If I want to see the list of the databases, show, right? Okay, good. How about updating, again, just the structure? How do I update the structure of a table? Alter table, right? And then updating the structure of a column, modify or change. Very good. All right, and then if I want to delete a table, drop, delete a database, drop, delete a column, drop. Yeah, they're all drop. Yeah. So I'll give you a hint here. This time it'll be a real hint or a little tip. So remember our other acronym that I came up with, DUIs. Those are the commands: delete, update, insert, select. Those are the commands for dealing with records, and only for dealing with records. You'll never use those four commands for structure ever, right? You use all these commands for structure. So the commands for actual records are right there. So I just gave away the answer to line number 13. What do we do for records, right? But we use the delete key to delete a record, or the delete keyword, the update word keyword to update a record, insert to insert into a table, and then or insert a record, and then select to look at the record. Right? Feel good about all those? Okay. So now let's add a couple of things here. Let's start with the structure stuff. All right. So get into the database here, and we'll use our already in towel. Show table or describe rep. Let's say. All right. Actually, the other day, I asked the question, what do you do if you goofed up when you entered your data and you put the city information in the address field and the address information in the city field? And somebody said, just rename the fields, right? Let me show you how you have to go about doing that, because it's a little trickier than you might think, and it allows me to show you a new idea, all right? So I think we can do it in the rep table, all right? Start from rep. So let's say when I inserted these, that I put like this was, all this stuff, that should have been, that's the city, let's say, right? I put these backwards, so that's the city and that's the state, I got them backwards, or the street. So the idea, I would rename street to city and city to street, right? Okay, but what's kind of a catch there?
I guess the length of the characters.
I think we're okay on that. Looks like city and street have 15, so we're okay there.
Is it going to be an issue if you rename street as city, you'll have two cities?
Yes, well, you can't rename street to city because city's already a field, right? That make sense? So we have to do this. Alter table rep change, because we're renaming street to city 2 or something like that, just temporarily. And make sure we give it the char 15 still. So, all right, we do that. Now if you do a select here, you'll see that now that's called city 2, right? Now we're gonna do a rename again from city to street. City, street, like so. Now we've switched, now this is called city 2, right? What do we gotta do? Rename that, right? Yeah, so we'll go, oh, there it is. Okay. City 2 to city. All right. So, whoops. Didn't mean to do that. So now we've reversed them. Now that I have reversed them, now they actually are wrong, right? Which is the thing that we were saying maybe we accidentally did. But let's ignore the fact that the data is wrong, just because I want to show you how to swap the names. But what bugs me about that now is that city comes before street in the listing, right? When I describe the table, when I go in order, it's kind of weird. Name, city, then the street. Even though it doesn't matter, right? But just for my own human brain, it matters, right? It matters, it will bug other people too, especially if they're going to do an insert and they assume the fields are in a certain order, right? So you can actually reposition the fields. You can change the order that they're in. There's 2 key words that you need to know for that. So this is the first new idea here. And they're called first and after. Those are the keywords, okay? With those 2 keywords, you can position any field anywhere in the list there. So in other words, I want city to be after street, right? What if I wanted city to be first on the list? Yes, use the first command, yeah. So the first and after commands are only used when you're modifying structure in a table. So let's swap city and street first of all, right? So the problem is we're trying to move city down below street, right? And we use one of these 2 commands over here, right? The after command. And so the way we do it, we do alter table, rep, right? Say the thing you're gonna do, say the thing you're doing to, say its name, then modify the column called city. And I've mentioned this a few times before, but every once in a while I forget it. And that is make sure you bring the data type along for the ride. Because the reason you need to put the data type there, if I don't, then I'm telling I want to modify city to be not a char 15 anymore, to be just nothing, no data type, which will give you an error. Followed by after, the keyword after, street. Now it'll move it down below street. There you go. If I do a describe again, now it's right where we want it. Street, city, state, and so forth. There's also the first keyword, which we talked about a second ago. And with the first keyword, if I want to put something at the top of the list, like let's say I want to move commission rate, so alter table rep, modify rate, column rate, and it's a decimal 32. And we want it to be first. And now, if you look, it's at the top of the list, right? So first and after. You don't need a before, there is no before, and there is no last, right? Because with after and first, you can get every single position. Does that make sense? All right, so those 2 are not a thing. All right, any questions about those two new commands there? The next thing I want to show you, also dealing with structure, right? So we got the first and after, and then the other one is dealing with auto increments. So right now in our database here, let me run that line again to move that back to the right place. All right, so now our table is back in regular order. So if you notice our primary key there, every time we create a new record, what do we have to do? We have to give it a primary key value, right? Every time I have a new employee, I have to give them an employee number. Well, in the real world, every database I've ever built, I never did that. I always made the database auto-create the number for me, auto-increment. Now, the auto-increment just starts at 1 and just increments to 2 to 3 and so on, all by itself. So we're just going to create a small table here that has 2 fields in it, but we're going to make the first one auto-increment. So create a table called fake table, whatever, and it's going to have we'll call it the ID field. It's going to be an integer, and it's going to be auto increment with an underscore. And it's a primary key, right? Like so. And then we'll have a name field, whatever, that's a char 20. That's it, just those 2 fields, okay? And now what we have, if you do a describe of this table, you see this extra thing here that says auto increment. It's also the primary key, can't have a null value. Well, this has some pros and cons, right? So if I'm going to do an insert, so insert into fake table, and I'm going to insert name values Beavis. And if I look in there now, I should have given it a better name than fake table. It's annoying to type. There he is, and his ID is Beavis, is number 1. Now watch this. If I insert another Beavis, he gets ID number 2. Just automatically happens, right? So I don't have to worry about accidental duplication of a primary key, okay? Now you can still, at least on regular MySQL, we'll find out here on the Maria version we're using, but on regular MySQL on the command line, you can still explicitly state the ID that you want. So in other words, I could still do this. Insert into fake table and ID, name, values, 99, and Jennifer, whatever. Okay? And it still lets me override it. And it gives her the ID of 99, right? But now the question is, what happens when I go to increment? If I do it, will it go to 100 or will it go to 3? That's the question, right? How many? We have 1 vote for 100. How many votes for 3?
I also think 100.
Go for 100. Right. Let's go for another insert, another Beavis, and it goes to 100. Okay, it picks up where you left off, which means it's up to you, the database administrator, to fill in numbers 3 through 98, right? Or just leave them the way they are. We don't have to. Okay. All right. So auto increment is a very useful thing. I use it all the time. And now in SQL Server, Microsoft's version, I'm 99.9% sure that you will not be able to override it manually. You have to just go with what it gives you. But you can set it to start wherever you want by doing alter table, fake table, then just auto increment equals whatever you want to start at. We'll start at 900. Now if I insert a record, values liver, which is my daughter's nickname, by the way. All right, so do a select from fake table, and it started at 900. And it will continue incrementing from there, going up every time. Now, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to start at 900 or some other number?
Like employee ID numbers?
Yeah, you might want all your employees to have a triple-digit employee number, so you might want to force it to start at 100. What else what's another reason? serial numbers. The biggest reason I've used that is for order numbers. If I have a brand new website that sells stuff and you're my first customer, I don't want your order number to be 1. Because you're like, wait a minute, nobody's bought from this guy before, right? Yeah, so I usually started at some random, not random, but something like 1242 or something like that. And I say random because it's randomly made up in my head. But I started at some number like that, and I'm not trying to trick anybody. It just makes them feel a little better. You know, I used to work for a company that was pretty small, and the guy made training videos. He sold them on VHS, like this is how long ago this was. And he was somewhat of a celebrity in, of all places, the accounting world, right? He made accounting training videos. And so people would watch his videos, and he was like a movie star to them, right? Well, when they'd call the company, it was him and his brother that ran the company. So he would answer the phone, and these people would freak out like they're talking to a celebrity. They freaked out, so he started going by his middle name so that they wouldn't recognize him as being the guy in the video, just because it made people freak out. So there's little things like that you do in business all the time to just, it makes the customers feel more comfortable, and I don't think it's immoral or unethical. You know, you're not fooling them or tricking them. Just little things that shouldn't matter, you just make them not matter. So this is one of those silly things. Anyway, all right. So we got auto increment, we got the first and the after keywords. How do we feel about those ideas? We good?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So for auto increment, is it possible for you to set the number that you want to increment by? So instead of like increment by 1, you increment by 2 or 3 or whatever?
So the question was, can I increment it by 2s or by 3s or by 4s or something like that? Which kind of goes with the question you asked a minute ago, which was, can I have it skip certain numbers? Like when it increments, I don't want it to use the number 666 maybe, for example, or the number 13 or something like that. And the answer to both of those is, particularly one where can you increment by a certain number, that probably exists, but I don't know how to do it. And yours, where you want to just skip certain numbers, I'm pretty sure that does not exist, but I don't know for sure. I've never really had to deal with that before, so I always just increment just by 1 every time. But there's probably a way to make it go by 2s.
So,
Yeah.
so you would say best practice was to add an auto increment on primary key?
I do, but I in my opinion, that adding the auto increment rather than having the database person or whatever have to manually create IDs, I would say better. Because think about this, the rep num. We're a big company like Amazon that employs like tens of thousands of people, and we have a new person come in, and I have to come up with a new rep number, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's try 9,742. Ah, crap, it's taken. Let's try 9,783. Ah, crap, it's taken, right? And notice, so select star from rep. You can see here that this looks like we're going by 15s, 15, 30, 45, 60. Maybe that's the pattern that we want. Maybe it isn't, I don't know. But so far that pattern seems to be holding there. So maybe if you had some sort of rule like that, that'd be fine. But why even have to think about it? Just do it just let the database manage that stuff. Because ultimately, those IDs don't mean anything. They're just a primary key that uniquely identifies the record for when I write a query. So I don't care I don't care if the number is Ralph 329. It doesn't matter what it is, just as long as I can queue off of it, right? All right, other questions? All right, so let's look at 2 new little tips, tricks with the select stuff, and then we'll add the new thing that we're doing, which is the order by clause today. All right, but let's look at select. Here's a quick, easy one. So let's look at the customer table. Select star from customer. We use this table a lot, and we see how messy it is because it overlaps, right? And it wraps around. Well, you can actually, rather than a semicolon, you can use a \G. And this acts as a line terminator, but it also means do it vertically instead of horizontally. So this is what you get for output. Looks like that. So now it breaks it down. Each record is very easy to read, right? There's row 1, and there's the data. There's row 1, or row 2, and there's the data. And if I'm not mistaken, when you log into the database, let's check and see if I'm right. Yeah, right there at the top. This says, welcome to the monitor, commands in with semicolon or slash lowercase g. The lowercase g is the same as a semicolon. Uppercase G is that display I just showed you. So anytime you want, rather than a semicolon, you can do a lowercase g. Why would you do that? I have no idea, right? But just use tau and select star from rep slash little g. And that's the same thing as putting a semicolon there. Don't know a use case for that, frankly. But capital G, lots of use case for that, right? Anytime you have a table that likes to scroll off the screen, this is a good way to do it. Let's scroll horizontally, I should say. Okay. All right, and you can also, so if you do slash H, it shows you that there. It gives you some help commands right there.
Oh, okay.
This tells you right when you log in, it tells you this. Okay. Slash C. And what does that do? I thought it would clear, but it doesn't. Put statement. Oh, yeah, so what that does, yeah, I was thinking of something else. What that does, so select star from rep where rep num is 45 or, and then you're like, I need to start over. You screwed up, right? Slash C breaks you out of there. Okay? All right, so anyway, and you can also look here, there's a few other little things if you want to look at them. That wasn't my intent to show you that. It was mainly to show you that slash capital G. And then the last one here, this is probably one of the handiest things that I use as a database programmer, and it's not in the book. So, you got, it's, yeah, so good thing you're here, yeah. Well, it's being recorded, I guess, but yeah. So here's what it is. Let me save this as a SQL file so that we can get some syntax highlighting. All right. So select star from rep, and let's just look here. We have, let's change one employee here. Update rep set state equal to Vermont, where rep num is greater than 30. So it'll change 2 people, all right? So now 2 of our employees live in Vermont, right? That's just me contriving a scenario to show you this cool thing I'm about to show you. If I were to say select first name, comma, state, we know what the result's going to be, right? It's just going to say their name and then the state. But I don't want it to say CA. I want it to say California, okay? So you can actually make it do that. What I'm going to do here is select, we're going to do, if you know what a switch statement is in programming, this is exactly the same thing. If you don't know what it is, you're about to learn, okay? So we call these a case statement. So select case state. And those parentheses may be unnecessary. We'll find out in a minute, okay? But select case on state, and then when CA, then California. When VT, then Vermont. And I have a feeling those parentheses are not needed. The problem is I program in PHP and Java and JavaScript and SQL code, and in switch statements in programming you use parentheses, but I think in database you don't. So let's just see if that works first of all. And yeah, it works. Okay, so so the parentheses work. I think that'll work without them too. We'll worry about this header in just a minute, but look what the output is. It's Raphael and then the word California. It's Meg and then the word California, okay? Just for fun, I want to test if you don't need those parentheses. Yeah, either one works, okay? Now, obviously this is ugly, right? So what we can do, see the title of that field is that, right? Well, just give it an alias like we've learned before, as state, right? Now I run it. There you go, okay? Now, obviously, being in a country that has 50 states, that'd be a really long case statement. I don't use it in that scenario. That's just an easy way for me to show you what it does. But now that you understand the idea, I'll show you the scenario in which I use it all the time, okay? There is a function here. So we've learned one function already, concat, right? That's a function. We're going to learn another function in a minute, and then we're going to learn one right now, and this function is called day of week. If I say select day of week, and I put a date in there, 2019, 10, say the 3rd, okay? 3rd or 4th? Third, okay. So if I say select day of week and I pass a date in there, it will return a number, the number 5, which means it's the 5th day of the week because day 1 is Sunday in MySQL, okay? So day 1 is Sunday. All right. Well, here's a very common thing I got asked. Dear database administrator, we would like to have you make a list of how many sales we get on a Monday compared to how many sales we get on Tuesdays compared to how many we get on Wednesdays. They want to know what's the average number of sales. So in other words, are the salespeople less productive on Fridays because it's the end of the week? Are they more productive on Mondays? Well, I can figure out the day of the week by using this function, right? So I could put in a date parameter in there. So for example, in the order table, select star from orders. If I said this, select order num, comma, day of week, order date, comma, customer num, from orders, then this will give me the day of the week, right? That was a 2 is a Monday, that's a Tuesday, that's a Thursday, that's a Friday. But that's not very useful to have a 2 and a 3 and a 5 and another, right? So you can guess what my case statement is going to look like, right? Yeah, when 2, then Monday, right, so on down the line. Yep, so we're going to go, let me first put this here. So I'm going to select the order number. Then I'm going to do the day of the week, and then from orders there. So we have this. But what I'm really going to do is do a case on that, right? So case day of week order date when 1, then Sunday, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how I write code in the real world, guys. Copy, paste, right? All right, so then we're going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All right, day of week, we're going to go with that. And the comma, the reason we have to put the comma here is because this is still just essentially one field, right? And so we just have this, then a comma, then we have this, then a comma, then we have this, right? So this should fix it, and there we go. Now I have Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and so forth. Now, later, when we learn about grouping, which is the day we actually cover a bunch of functions, we will learn how to group that, and I can get a count of how many were on Monday and a count of how many were on Tuesday. But for now, this gives you the idea, right? All right, questions about that? Okay, so with our brief review here, we kind of rehashed what CRUD is, what it stands for, what the commands are, how to use them. We added 2 new things to our structure stuff, the first and after commands, and then auto increment, right, when you're creating a table. In our basic select statements, we learned to do the /G, and we learned the case when scenario, right? And there it is on the screen right there, so you can take a good long look at that, make sure you understand it. We can pause the video here or whatever, okay? All right, now, the new thing, the last thing, is we're going to learn how to order data, which is not a hard thing, right? In fact, the short version is this: select star from rep. If you look at it right now, it's ordered by rep number, but I want to order it by, so you use the order by clause, last name. And then it will sort it by last name, which basically is the same order except Sefton and Tien are switched, okay? Now, if we had, say, inserts into rep num and last last name, comma, first name, values, bless you, 65, another Etienne, in quotes, of course, and we'll do Andrew. All right, now, if I select and I do an order by last name, it's last name, it's alphabetical by last name, but I also want the first names to be alphabetical, right? So you can do that. You can put a second order by there. So I can say order by last name, comma, first name. And now you'll watch that Hoy and Andrew will be reversed. Now Andrew's first, okay? You can also do it descending. So I can say order by last name, descending, and now the last names will be descending, but the first names will be ascending, which is the default behavior. But you can also manually put in ascending like that, okay? But we're gonna leave it that way. And so now it's reverse alphabetical order by last name, but first name is regular alphabetical, okay? There's really not much more to ordering than that, all right? There's two little tricks I'm gonna show you, but any questions about the basic premise there? It's pretty easy. It's not a big deal. Okay, that's the order by clause. Now, you can order it by a random order if you wanted to. So select star from rep, order by, and here is your next function, rand, which will just randomly sort it. So watch this. It's, look at the order, 65, 15, 45, 30. Now it's 30, 65, 60, 45, just a random order. Why would you do that?
Really, are you gonna get fired? Change it and walk away.
Well, you're not changing anything though, right? You're just ordering it for the view, right? So the data didn't change, right? You can't change anything with a select statement, bless you. You can't, your select statements can never change data. They can only just change how you display it on the screen. So why would you want a random order?
You're getting like a sample or something?
Yeah, maybe like a random sample of employees or something like that. Random drug tests for employees that do random drug tests. Now, we have 5 employees, but maybe we only, like every day, we randomly pick 2 of them, right? Well, you can do this. Limit, there's a new clause for you, 2. Now to randomly pick 2 employees. Now pick those 2, now those 2, now those 2, those 2, so forth. Okay? I do this with my own databases when I'm doing a drawing where I'm going to give away a prize or something. I'll just randomly pick one person. So I'll do a random order and I'll put limit 1. And just whoever's name comes up, they win the prize. Right? That's an easy way to do a drawing out of a database. Okay? Last quick thing, and then we're done. So you just learned 2 new clauses here, right? The order by and the limit. Okay? We already knew select from where, group by we haven't learned yet, but we've heard of it, having, and then order by and limit, that is the order they have to go in, okay? Now, this is MySQL. In SQL Server or Microsoft SQL, the limit keyword doesn't work. The query, which won't work here, but I'm gonna type it anyway, select top 1 star from rep. That would be the command in SQL Server. I'm only showing you that just so that if you ever end up on a SQL server and that doesn't work, you'll know why, because it's a different command. I don't expect you to remember that, but the tip that you hopefully get from this, you'll get the error of course, is if you tried limit on SQL Server and it didn't work, Google the phrase SQL Server equivalent to MySQL limit. How I learned about limit was the other way around. I grew up on the select top. So I tried that in a database, on my SQL database, and it didn't work. So I Googled equivalent of SQL Server top in MySQL, and I found that it's limit. But also limit has to go at the end of the statement, whereas top goes at the beginning of the statement. So there's little quirky things like that when you switch versions of your database, but generally speaking, the stuff is pretty much the same. Okay, any other questions? All right, folks, have a groovy weekend.